समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा?
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The Air India 171 crash has tragically begun to fade from the news headlines. But the accompanying safety concerns continue, sometimes unnoticed by the media. But not on this platform, where we commit ourselves to reporting every dimension thrown up by air safety debates. This week has come a big new directive from the American regulator, the FAA. The FAA has flagged an issue of substandard titanium, which it says could lead to the RAT, that is the ram air turbine, not functioning properly on two models of the 787, the Dreamliner aircraft. 787 is, of course, the aircraft type that crashed in Ahmedabad 32 seconds after takeoff. The models here are different, but the safety principles at the heart of the debate around Boeing in this case remain the same. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Motor Story. All of us saw this image after the Air India 171 crash. In fact, it's in the preliminary investigation report. It shows the RAT deploying. There has been so much debate over when the RAT deployed. Was it before or after the fuel control switches transitioned? And many experts in the pilot community continue to argue that something else happened, like an electrical catastrophe, instead of the finger pointing at the pilots, Captain Sumit and Clive, that took place. But even while investigators do their job when it comes to Air India 171, a tragedy that has unfortunately already started fading from our news headlines, comes something important that we need to talk about. A brand new directive from the American aviation regulators, the FAA. This even as you're seeing videos of a 787 bound for Santiago heading back to LA with the RAT deploying. Why am I mentioning the RAT again and again, even as we look at other examples of 787s that have faced problems in the last week and in fact in the last month? Well, because there is a brand new FAA warning. And what is the warning talking about? It's talking about substandard titanium. Substandard titanium, which it says could lead to issues with the RAT deploying. In fact, the FAA directive even goes on to specifically say that if this condition, if this particular titanium continues, then in these circumstances, the RAT could fail. The RAT is what is supposed to provide the hydraulic backup. And in this particular case, the FAA directive has said that the material of titanium used is a reduced value. It's basically substandard. And that this could lead to the RAT not functioning as it should. To talk about the largest safety concerns that continue to dog our minds, our thoughts as flyers, but continue to dog aviation experts as well, I want to introduce our very distinguished panel today. Captain Sam Thomas is with us, who leads the ALPA Association. Good to see you, sir. Also joining us is Wing Commander Panikkar. He has, of course, commanded the 787 for 10 years. And also joining us is a military veteran, Group Captain Dr. Augustine, who is, of course, looking at the larger issues of safety that we need to talk about and we need to be concerned about. So let me start by asking you, Wing Commander Sharath Panikkar, you've actually flown the 787. And the FAA Airworthiness Directive, it applies to two particular models of Boeing, the 787-9 and the 787-10. Now, this particular directive is basically saying that the substandard, sort of substandard titanium that has been used And if this is not changed, then it could actually affect the working of the rat. And the rat is what is meant to provide both the hydraulic and the electrical power backup if something goes wrong with the engines. How concerned are you at hearing this?
It is a significant directive. The fact that the FAA has come out with this, it means that something that is of great concern with safety. And that's the reason why the FAA has come out with this. The FAA is, of course, parallel to the DGCA that we have in India. And they have been sufficiently concerned to take a closer look at what's happening. And in the case of Air India, the Dash 9s are the ex-Vistara aircraft. We have about 7 of them. And they are probably going to be the ones that are affected. And as far as the rat is concerned, Barkha, it's important to know that the Dreamliner is actually an amalgam of different manufacturers. We have the wings being produced somewhere, we have the fuselage somewhere else, we have the landing gear from somewhere else, the electronics, the EEC, the heart, the soul, the software. Everything is just an amalgam that is put together finally at its assembly base of Seattle. So now, from where they have come out with this particular directive is basically a safety issue because of the repeated rat deployments that have taken place in flight without the accompanying conditions that would dictate the deployment of the rat. The rat automatic deployment, there are 5 basic conditions, primary to which is the dual engine failure. So the dual engine failure is the one in which we are concerned about in India with Air India 171. Though it appears that the Dash 8 is not affected, it is of concern that the other models of the 787 is also flying with Air India. Therefore, we would be concerned. As far as aviation-related material is concerned, it has to pass certain stringent tests. It is not that you have something of a similar make and build that you can come and just fit it out there. It's not something that's made locally and then it has to pass certain stringent tests. It has to be cleared for aviation use. It has to be certified, and only then it can be installed upon an aircraft. So it is of concern, and I would say that it's a fairly serious concern because something is happening, something is triggering off the rat, which should not be happening.
Yeah. And I want to bring in Captain Thomas, and then I'll come to Dr. Augustine for the larger overview on the safety environment of flying. Captain Thomas, when I juxtapose this with the Air India 171 crash, now again, that was a different model. This FAA is on the 787-9 and the 787-10, so I'm not drawing a literal link. But what it does tell you is that there are serious safety concerns when it comes to Boeing. And in this particular case, if Boeing has used substandard titanium, it basically implies that Boeing is possibly cutting corners, because the FAA report very, very clearly says that there is a reduced grade of titanium that has been used, that should be. So there is a grade 4 or grade 5 that should be used and a grade 1 that has been used instead. And it directly says that the rat can fail. If this is not addressed, the rat could fail.
Ma'am, good evening. Very pertinent points that you've picked up. Now, with your permission, I'd like to make a distinction between what we discuss if Wing Commander Panikkar is talking exactly on the technicalities of a 787 and Dr. Augustine would be coming in general. This titanium alloy that you're talking about right now, without me going into much of technicalities, is just an example. This is a part of a larger issue that Boeing themselves, rather the employees of Boeing themselves have highlighted. This is just an example. The titanium alloy that could cause a problem with the deployment or not deployment of the rat at the right times. Now, as far as the airframe itself is concerned, people have raked up more issues with the airframe itself. Now at Boeing. Now this is a larger part of what is happening, and what we were trying to highlight initially at the time of the crash is that why don't we go look at the technicalities or the technical errors that could have happened and by process of elimination, remove all of them before you come to the pilot error part of it. So this was one of our major concerns.
Yeah.
And please don't go by what we are saying. Just look at your whistleblowers that have been telling you all along that all is not well with the production line of Boeing. Like Wing Commander Panikar said, this is bits and pieces equipment brought into Seattle and assembled. Now, there have been multiple audits at the facilities, and more than one facility has failed the audit. However, some things, for want of a better word, some jugaad has happened, and these said facilities have again been approved, or rather, they've done an audit on these facilities and found that they may now be sufficiently qualified to continue the work. So what we are saying is, look at the larger factor. This titanium alloy is just another example. Much more than the titanium alloy happens to be not of the greatest quality, and quality control is one of those factors that seem to be wanting in Boeing at the moment.
So I think, Captain Sam Thomas, what you're saying is that this is an example of the larger concerns around the production line safety, where the corners are being cut. And in the context of the Air India crash, what you want everybody to remember is that there should have been a more minute detail at this production line, at everything that goes into the making of a Boeing aircraft, whether it's the engines, whether it's the rat, whether it's now the titanium. We're now talking about the alloy in a particular part, and that didn't happen as quickly as people pointed fingers at the pilot. Now, Captain Augustine, I know that you're unable to speak particularly about the Air India crash, but I want you to talk about the larger issues at stake. The larger issues at stake are about our safety environment. I was just doing some research before this show to look at incidents that have taken place in the last 1 month, right? We have seen in the last few days, we have seen a plane that was bound for Santiago returning to LA with the rat deployed. A few days back, before that, we saw a United Airlines 787 from Washington declare mayday, and it had to keep circling in the air because I guess it had to drop fuel before it turned back. This happened on the 25th of July. A couple of weeks before that, you had a Hawaiian Airlines 787 that actually tried twice to reach its destination in Honolulu, could not, turned back and came back to LA. Reason I'm citing all of these examples is to look at these larger safety concerns. We've had a Delta airline where, if I'm not wrong, turbulence led to hospitalization. We've had another plane incident where people had to come down emergency chutes. I think that might have been Delta. I'm not sure. I don't remember it properly. But Dr. Augustine, the larger safety environment.
It's a wonderful topic to discuss, Barkha, and the reason why I joined this particular conversation was to discuss about that larger safety environment. And it is very important for our viewers to understand and assimilate this particular aspect. 99% of travelers do not know that in US, there have been cases of counterfeit parts being put in an aeroplane. And there was a case in, I think it was Convair 289 or something like that, where because of a counterfeit part, which was a bolt, can you believe it, as silly and simple and as low cost as a bolt, was a counterfeit bolt, which broke up in air, aeroplane crashed, all people perished. So to me, Barkha, the Collins Aerospace makes the rat. Collins Aerospace, they are the rat company, so to say, and they claim they have saved close to 2,400 lives, and they have been making rats for a long time. Now let's come back to this issue of counterfeit parts. Firstly, my suspicion, and maybe as the time goes by, we'll probably come to know. My suspicion is that this particular fan blade could be a counterfeit fan blade. Otherwise, there is no other way where a grade 1 titanium block, you know how they are made? They are made from a block of titanium which comes, to the milling station, and it is milled or it is machined out of a block. It is not powder pressed, because rat is such an important, last line of defense, that you don't powder press it. Now, when you bring a billet and machine it, now you are paying for the entire billet. So the billet could be, say, 100 grams. After you machine and take just the one blade out, it could be just 10 grams. So 90% goes as shavings, which is of course recycled, but not in the company, but it goes back to the person whom you bought it from, and now it goes as grade 2, grade 3 or something like that. So the issue is, Barkha, what kind of testing that was carried out, firstly. Secondly, such a critical part being counterfeit is a possibility. Now let's come back to...
So hang on. You're actually saying that rather than the titanium across the board being of low quality, you believe the issue might be that this is a counterfeit part. But it's very easy, Dr. Augustine, to get to the bottom of this. Boeing has to explain what is the titanium grade that it procured for this. Is it the grade that it's meant to? Is it that the grade 5 turned out to be the grade 1, or did they import the grade 1?
No, not Boeing. Collins Aerospace, because like Panika sir said, most aeroplanes, including our Tejas, most aeroplanes have parts made by various other companies. For example, we have a clock in Mirage 2000. That clock is made by a manufacturer who makes only clock. The ejection seats are made by a manufacturer who makes only ejection seats, Martin Baker. So they are those, specialized ejection seat makers. So nobody reinvents wheels. Similarly, Collins Aerospace makes rat. In fact, recently, when I was in US, had the opportunity of visiting. No, I couldn't go to the. They have created a wind tunnel for the rat, so that the rats are deployed, and they have something called a pollen ratchet mechanism. So the propeller doesn't. It is coming into airflow of directly 140 knots or more, so it shouldn't overspeed or break up at such a great acceleration. So they have a pollen ratchet mechanism. So that is what I was looking at, how the engagement of rat happens. The moment propeller comes
sorry, before you continue, Collins Aerospace makes it for Boeing, or it makes the rat for all planes?
Most aeroplanes.
I see.
And they are the ones who procure this billet, machine, everything. So it is imperative, like you correctly said, it is imperative that Boeing conducts pre-receipt inspection, we call it the PRI, before it is incorporated. Now, Barkha, the larger aspect comes, which in fact offline also we have discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Boeing and McDonnell Douglas merged, I think, in 1997 somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Now, during that merger, the production quality control personnel who were supposed to be X amount, in that video it says 7, they were reduced to 1, which means when you incorporate any new part, someone comes and inspects that have you incorporated the part correctly? Have you gone through the procedure correctly? Those people have been reduced because of the culture that McDonnell Douglas carried forward into Boeing. I believe Boeing had an exceptional safety culture which deteriorated post the merger. So that is, again, a whistleblower's aspect of the whole thing. So my larger point is that when you're manufacturing stuff, or when you're incorporating stuff into the aeroplane, especially during production, all these aspects should have been seen by Boeing if Collins Aerospace had missed. Now, the investigation will tell us whether it was Collins Aerospace, or during the process of repair or major overhaul, did Boeing procure a wrong propeller and incorporated it. All that will come out. And best part about FAA, because I was there, I'm a FAA ATPL license holder, and went to and talked to many FAA inspectors. FAA are very professional organization in that way. They will not try to cover up. So I feel
Yeah.
over a period of time, we will come to know whether it is a counterfeit is the problem, or was it the Rockwell Collins or the Collins Aerospace is the problem.
So just reading this out, Wing Commander Panikkar, to you and everybody else to comment on. Certain media reports are saying that last year reports surfaced that some Boeing and Airbus jets contain unapproved titanium sourced from China and supplied by Spirit Aerosystems, which produces airframes. That's one dimension. Another article says one of Collins Aerospace's predecessor companies had previously produced 787 Ram air turbines. Collins is still a primary RAT supplier. It hasn't immediately commented on this directive. In 2024, Collins took a $175 million charge related to switching titanium suppliers. Now, this is the other disturbing thing that happens in America. FAA, I'm not questioning FAA, as Group Captain said, Wing Commander, but Boeing just paid a hefty penalty to the Trump administration to avoid prosecution on the 737 MAX. And 737 MAX, as we know, after the first crash, the pilot, an Indian pilot, was blamed. It took a second crash for them to accept that there was a problem with the MCAS software. Now, instead of being prosecuted, they basically paid a fee. So they have enough money, they've paid a fee, they've avoided prosecution. Now, given all of these issues that have been flagged by all of you, and as Captain Sam Thomas says, there's a larger issue, a larger set of concerns here, especially in the context of the crash. As somebody who's flown the 787, what would you say, Wing Commander Panikkar?
Start.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, sir, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Now I can.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, I completely endorse what MJ just said. That's Group Captain Augustine.
Yeah.
At the end of the last century, when the merger took place, there was a change in the safety culture of Boeing. From a completely engineer and safety-driven company, which wouldn't clear anything unless it passed stringent safety tests and repeatedly passed stringent safety tests, they became more bottom-line driven, more accountant-driven, more objective towards making things, passing things out at the fastest possible rate. So there was a definite deterioration in the safety culture of Boeing starting back from almost 25 odd years back. And it has only increased over a period of time. That's number one. Number two, whenever you look at the safety culture of an organization and you interface it with an accountant culture, the accountant is looking to cut costs. He's going to look for the lowest common denominator. And if you have a Chinese supplier who's supplying, let's say, a Collins standard RAT for 1/3 of the cost, he's going to say, "What about this?" Now, I'm not aware of the facts of the case, but I'm just trying to highlight a situation in which the culture is driven by reducing the cost to the extent possible, removing the safety interfaces that you have, reducing the number of inspectors, reducing the number of checks, and thereby passing out a product, hoping like hell that nothing else happens. And like you very correctly pointed out, Barkha, unfortunately, the first MAX accident that happened in Southeast Asia. Had the same thing happened, God forbid, in the United States, the reaction of Boeing would have been 180 degrees out. They wouldn't have taken it so lightly and promptly blame it on the pilot. It took the second MAX crash, the Ethiopian crash, for them to realize the gravity of the situation and admit that the MCAS was not told to the pilots. There was no simulator training. There was nothing that people knew that it would be death by computer. A situation had come, and that to the systems that they used. It was a solitary angle of attack sensor which malfunctioned. They didn't have a voting system like they have on the 78 system, on the 787, or on the 777, in which readings of sensors are compared, evaluated in real time, and the system decides as to whether the input is reliable or not. Here, it just blindly took, in the case of the MAX, that the input is showing you that you're close to your angle of attack, and the system just cut in, forcing the nose of the aircraft down into an unrecoverable crash, because the pilot simply didn't know how to handle it. There was nothing that they could have done. So now coming back to the 787, deterioration in culture, primarily in safety culture, leading to less amount of safety oversight. The FAA, incidentally, the head of the FAA, if I'm not mistaken, had commented publicly that it was the pilots that caused the crash of Air India 171. He had no locus standi. It's like our DG, the DGCA, commenting upon the Black Hawk accident. They have no locus standi. There is an investigation agency in place. And the head of the FAA, of all people, should have known that. And he had no business commenting upon it. Okay, so coming back to the overall culture, there has been a deterioration in standards. There's been a deterioration in oversight. There's been a deterioration in the processes that take place. And that is the reason why probably we are having so many cases in which things that are related, maybe not related, if correctly brought out, that are coming out.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point about the accountant culture versus the safety culture. And Captain Thomas, it's in a way related to the pressure on pilots to reduce the fuel that they use up on a flight. Right? I've actually sort of, after researching AI 171, one has discovered so many things that one didn't know earlier. So to go back to Air India 171, it's kind of fallen off the news cycle. Of course, the grieving families, the grieving aviation community, not for them, not for all of you. But in a way, is this lack of media obsessiveness helping? Are you hoping that the inquiry is now going, being conducted professionally? We've had a pilot now formally added to the proceedings. His name has been released and so on. Where are you seeing the AI 171 crash investigation in the context of all these other larger safety concerns?
Ma'am, as both sirs put out very eloquently, this is the points that we were missing initially in the investigation. Do you see how complex this issue is, how complex this airplane is? That's why we were saying that you need an expert. Now, at least they have now put in a 787 rated pilot, an examiner on type. So there is a little bit of an improvement on that. Secondly, the way they announced in Parliament that we have these experts already on board, then why was the necessity to bring in the this rated examiner if you already had these? So in fact, this was factually incorrect. A lot of statements that have been made, and the questions being asked in Parliament are, we put it to you that it's cosmetic in nature. Somebody is asking a question, somebody is giving an answer, and nothing is verified. Now, as both sirs put it, the moment you have commercial interests overriding flight safety, you are bound to have a disaster sooner than later. Now, when Boeing does it, we are up in arms complaining about it, but aren't we doing the same thing? I mean, sometimes, like you very rightly pointed out, pilots being forced to take lesser and lesser fuel. I understand that there is an optimization of operations and fuel. I myself, in the capacity as director operations, sometimes do tell pilots, boss, just don't take fuel for the heck of taking fuel. That would come into something called a comfort fuel level. You're taking 3 and 4 tons of fuel extra on a 737, which is bad. So I wouldn't say bad, it's not optimal. So these are the points that we seem to be missing out, and what, instead of blaming everybody, and another point that was brought out about the locus standi of the FAA, this is another point that we highlighted very earlier on in this investigation, that Indians seem to be overwhelmed by the arrival of certain foreigners, and then you really cannot stand up to them. One thing is you need a persona to stand up to them, and two is you need technical knowledge. Now, in the absence of both of these, they may be very distinguished gentlemen from the Indian Air Force, engineering officers. They might have done wonderful things in the Air Force, but unfortunately, this airplane is not what they have in their inventory or have even seen anything as close to. So therefore, that's our demand, that either you make it transparent, involve everybody, and have people of stature who can stand up to an FAA or a Boeing or somebody from the UK or anything like that. So unless you have that, we are not going anywhere with this. We're just towing the line of somebody in. It's a brilliant point brought out by Commander Panikar.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point about power dynamics. We also have a major Boeing order, which is, I would be very intrigued to see what happens to it given the tariff trade war with the Trump regime, but that's a different conversation. I'll give you the last word, Group Captain Augustine. I think both Sam and Wing Commander Panikar have flagged the fact that, this is a technical conversation meant for subject matter experts, and even they will take their time. Even the FAA has only now issued this airworthiness directive on the fact that basically titanium, the grade of titanium that impacts the RAT deployment is not what it should be on 2 models of the 787. For you, what is the larger concern that you think the public discourse is missing?
2 things, Barkha. But first and foremost is the safety aspect of production safety. Production safety is different from flight safety. Production safety is something that is ensured during production. It is impossible. Like, I mean, this is the glass Barkha has bought it, say, from me. At the time of production, what safety standards that I incorporated while I made this particular glass? Did I use the correct, metallurgy for this nut out here? Or did I ensure the length was proper? And stuff like that is ensured only during production safety. The moment I sell it to you, Barkha, you cannot know what kind of safety measures that I took when I sold this to you. And in an aeroplane, there are parts which are like deep inside. Some parts are opened only, at the end of the life of an aeroplane. So it's very, very complex machine. And any aeroplane, any passenger aeroplane is a very complex machine. So when you're building things around things and around things to give it a shape of an aeroplane, there's a whole lot of safety that goes into it. I hope that 737 MAX accident and such accidents give food for thought for the Boeing, and bring back the production safety people into the fold so that they don't wind up like Boeing wound up. There are many aeroplanes in the history which wound up closed shop because of wrong safety inspectors or no safety inspectors.
Absolutely. I think what all 3 of you have flagged is we're talking about a reduction in the quality of titanium, but the larger conversation is the reduction in the safety culture. Safety culture versus accountant culture. At the production level, you cannot be trying to say, let's buy something for cheap if it's not foolproof as much as you are aware of in terms of safety, and that has to be the priority. We'll leave it there. I think this is a big story. It needs more attention. Wing Commander Panikar, you've got a sentence to add. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just one sentence.
Yeah,
I'm talking about what is left in the public perception. All these statements that various people have been making, whether it be FAA, whether it be Boeing, whether it be Air India itself, like basically saying that there is nothing wrong with the aircraft. The AIB itself, making a statement like, at this point in time, there is nothing to mention as such. This is what is left in the public perception. I think it is important not to leave this general impression with the public that, it's basically the pilots. That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
So I feel that it's very necessary for us to continue the investigation. Clearly, there's something more than meets the eye. The dual engine failure, the timing of it, the fact that the switches have transitioned far faster than any human being can move. Your fuel control switches, the deployment of the RAT, which should not have taken place unless it got a command of an engine failure. And an engine failure command would take time. It's not that RPM from takeoff thrust comes to engine fail thrust. There's a significant amount of time in between. Now, let's say you're taking off with 100% thrust, engine fail thrust will come below flight idle, which is somewhere around 40%. it's going to take a finite amount of time before it comes from takeoff thrust, let's say 90 or 100%, to below 40%. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. And both the engines, the signal has to go before a rat deploys. So there are lots of anomalies out here, lots of areas which require detailed and careful investigation. It suits Boeing at this particular point in time to say, oh, this is how it is. Just for information, when it first happened, like I mentioned earlier on your program, when it happened, when Air India 171 happened, I was sitting in Vienna. And I was on my way to Washington. The aircraft that I was supposed to take had just gotten airborne from Delhi. I was shocked that Boeing, FAA, DGCA, nobody did anything about it. Everybody just kept happily flying without ever checking that you've had a dual engine failure on takeoff, unheard of. And the whole world is keeping quiet. And 1,200 Dreamliners are still happily flying all over the world with nobody doing anything about it. Do remember that at that point in time, nobody knew what happened.
Yeah, I think the larger point that you make is the important one, that there is the shorthand blaming of pilots without looking at all of the larger issues in the production line of how a plane is assembled. I think, as Group Captain Augustine said, production safety is very different from flight safety. Flight safety comes later. Production safety, how a plane is actually made, how a plane is actually engineered, the parts that go into it. Does Boeing or any other manufacturer cut corners? These are the questions that we need to be talking about. These are complex questions, and there is no lazy shorthand sort of finger pointing, that should emerge from a crash as horrific as AI 171, including the knee-jerk response of blaming the pilots. And this issue of the titanium, whether it's counterfeit, whether it's something else that has happened, whether it's cutting corners, it all tells you that there are larger issues that need to be spoken about before either clean sheets are handed out or fingers are pointed. We leave it there. To Dr. MJ Augustine, to Wing Commander Panikkar, to Captain Thomas, namaskar, thank you, and see you soon. Thank you, sir.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.